What does Five Nights at Freddy's security breach hide from you before 3 a.m.? The pizza Plex is quite large, and as Gregory moves along in his nighttime adventure, there's a lot we can't see out of bounds and off camera. So I'm going to be breaking it down and showing you things you can't normally see, all while also breaking the game and forcing you to do things it probably shouldn't. How wonderful. Right out of the gate, when starting a new game, we get this wholesome, cheery rock band cinematic intro. Freddy ends up overloading on the stage though, following with him being booted back up in safe mode within his dressing room. We play as a boy named Gregory, who is now hiding in Freddy's stomach hatch, which results with an alliance between the two. We'll see that security is looking for us, which follows with trying to release Freddy from his room. Using the vents to progress, we'll get a chance to peek into the other animatronics rooms. Each one is doing their own thing, but we'll get back to them later. While exploring, we can find the photo pass we need over here by this Freddy cutout. Freeing Freddy from his room now, we'll take control of him, which allows us to access the utility tunnels. Signs of danger are evident while making our way down, as we hear the security guard, Vanessa, calling out for us. Freddy senses we're injured at this point, which prompts him to escort us to the first aid booth that's nearby. While in here, Vanessa will show up and talk about Freddy ruining the show. She will leave and go back to her patrol though, as the coast is clear now. Let's stop here and re-explore what we just went through. When first starting, we can see that while Freddy is looking into the mirror, he's actually a floating pair of arms when viewing this with a free cam. However, the way the in-game player looks varies depending on what layers are hidden from the camera, which you'll see when we take a look at Gregory. Bringing the camera out of the room and out of bounds will show that it's quite dark out here, as you can see. Although, if we change the view, this will reveal quite a different sight. It appears that our immediate area is all that's presently loaded in, with many other objects further away from us, as they're all scattered about. This, of course, makes sense, because if everything was loaded in, we'd be having a lot of trouble running the game. There is an unorthodox way to access these vacant areas we see though, which I ended up doing accidentally, but that's a little further into the game. Anyway, we can see while Freddy is taking Gregory out of his stomach hatch that he is not presently loaded in. Once he sets him down, we'll see that his arm will load in, which happens to be wearing the Faz watch that we haven't acquired yet. When we see Vanessa patrolling outside the room here, we can watch how she just simply loads in right out of the player's view. While I'm in this mode that I'm presently using, you'll see that the human models look like the Marvel character Sentry from Thunderbolts when he becomes the Void. It is, however, funny to witness how Vanessa doesn't see Gregory through the window during her patrol. Worst security guard ever, am I right? She will continue on this path of hers though, making her way over here, where she'll eventually unload. I tried freezing her movement during this, but despite being held in place, she's still unloaded. A long time ago when I was first messing with the game, I clipped out of bounds and ran into her during this sequence. She jump scares you if you do this. She then warps you much farther into the game. Anyway, I went ahead and got our Faz watch that comes out of this gift box in Freddy, which then made me see we're holding the Phaser blaster that we definitely haven't acquired yet. Before heading into the vents, we can see that Roxy is patiently waiting for us. Hearing her speak to herself when we approach though, reveals quite the self-absorbing personality that's been programmed within her. On the next stop, it would have been really cool to see Monty thrashing about in his room, seeing as we normally get this viewpoint when traversing the vents. Unsurprisingly though, the room is vacant, as Monty is nowhere in sight, minus the merchandise and pictures of him all over the place. Chica standing by is probably my favorite though, as she's visually struggling to keep her composure. It's basically how she looks when she's hunting us. Her guitar is also clipping to the ground below her during this. When we get closer to Chica with Gregory though, you can see how her guitar will fly up to her hands as she begins to rock out. We can even get down here as Gregory and jam out with her too. Glorious! When looking for the pass that frees Freddy, we can see that more of the pizza Plex will load in. I thought that playing as Freddy would possibly prompt a reaction to the other animatronics as I broke into the rooms, but it did not, as Roxy is not phased. I don't know about Roxy, but Freddy's intense staring would have definitely freaked me out. Moving on, this endoskeleton we see while going down the stairs is crawling in place while waiting for its cue. It makes quite the journey when being triggered by the player though. I thought it would simply unload once it was out of our sight, but as you can see, it makes its way all the way down here, crawls all about through the floor, where it then eventually unloads. Curious. This is where I had a good laugh though, as I somehow glitched the model of Gregory. I couldn't figure out how to repeat this, but Gregory's model was loaded in while I was inside Freddy. It was quite the strange spectacle when taking a look at it while being out of the player's view, so I hilariously continued my way down the stairs. However, getting to where Freddy seeks aid for us, we'll see how his arms will unload when the game takes control during this. This follows with Gregory sliding his way about through here, where he'll then vanish, as Freddy takes us out of his stomach. So I went ahead and got into the first aid booth, which then followed with Vanessa loading in right next to us. We can see how Gregory is hiding here, as Vanessa has this chat with Freddy. I tried messing with Vanessa here, but like before, she was not hindered by any of my antics, and continued on with her usual path. As you can see though, we're now back at where we stopped, so let's go ahead and continue on as usual. We've successfully evaded Vanessa now, and it's time to get back in Freddy. We'll explore more of the utility tunnels, which lead to heading back up some stairs. Freddy will need a recharge once getting up here, as we'll have to continue on our own. This is when we'll have our first encounter with Chica, which involves sneaking by her. Can't forget Monty though, who gives us a frightful scare as he chases us, which leads to Chica also spotting us. Getting safely into an office, we now gain access to the security cameras, as we then have to navigate our way around, avoiding Chica mostly at this point. Of course, we'll reach the lobby, being our exit, as it locks down. This involves going deeper into the lobby, which Chica is patrolling. Oops. After successfully sneaking around and collecting items, we'll get a daycare pass. We can find some more collectibles along this venture when making our way into this next area, but now it's time to slide into fun, as we're then greeted by Sun, the daycare attendant. This guy gets really excited with us being here and needs to be distracted in order for us to get away from him. If we accomplish this, we're able to get a flashlight finally, along with getting a security badge. This causes Sun to lose his mind, as he then warns us. Moon now appears, and we need to get the lights back on, which involves going around this entire area as we turn on 5 generators. Once you do this and get the lights back on and try to leave, he gives us a jump scare, as he alerts the others while booting us out of the play area. It didn't work out my first time doing this, as I couldn't get into Freddy in time, but let's stop here and take another look at everything we endured. Vanessa's gone, and it's time to explore as we conceal Gregory. Whoops, that wasn't supposed to happen. What a revealing void of death. Speaking of, we'll see that this utility tunnel is the main structure that's loaded in when zooming out. I did like this display of staff bots that were crowding a destroyed one at the end of the tunnel, clueless with what to do. When Freddy makes his mad dash for the charge station, I tried joining him as Gregory, but it wasn't happening. I then tried manipulating the staff bot that we'll normally see when in this area, who, with some assistance, has some nice dance moves. But there wasn't much else I could do with this bot. Creating a party with them just made the situation more awkward, as they stood around like the original one. This happens to be the same case when trying this with the staffer that does a patrol here. It'll just clone into the game in a similar fashion, which is unfortunate as I wanted to try and make them race each other, given the route he's taking. Unglorious. When approaching the bathroom where we find Chica downing some garbage, you'll see how she loads in once we approach the door. I thought about letting her get me here, but held off on dying and got a closer look at this weirdo. Chica Standard, as she's called, had no chance against my powers though. I put her into one of these stalls, which, to my surprise, did end up containing her. She couldn't get out, and was possessively waiting for me to make my next move, as you can see. Gregory disappears when getting grabbed by her, as she continues to slide forward and all about, with a level then unloading. Resetting the instance, because it broke on me, you'll see how the level is presently loaded in as we make our way in the sub-level. There's places we could break into right now, but there's no point, seeing that we'll eventually have access to them further into the game. Chica will not stalk us after sneaking by her, as she'll simply unload. In case you were wondering. It's time to check out this chase we have with Monty though. Being the first interaction we have with him, he'll normally chase us through this hall. I put a stop to that, and in a similar fashion, placed him out of our way like Chica from earlier. This surprisingly backfired though. Dude straight up just comes out of nowhere around the corner unfazed by my trickery. You can actually see how he warps from where I put him though, relentlessly blocking the way. I'll take a hint, Monty. It's an area we'll have access to later on, so no sweat. Moving on. I never turned left up here when running from Monty, which was why I was surprised to see Roxy was at this gate. Of course, Roxy isn't a threat during this, as I did try to interact with her, but you can see how the game was visibly loading sections in and out as I moved about in this area she was in. The loading must have broken Monty too, because he just stood down at the other end of this path when coming back over here. However, Chica wasn't going to let me off that easy. Well, that was until I tried to get them all together so that they'd just chill and maybe play some music. I think we all know that's not how this works though. I could get back here where Chica came from, but it leads to a locked door, being no secret. Things end up getting a bit out of control here, and a tad creepy, especially if Chica isn't your favorite of the bunch. Glorious. Of course, we now need to make our way to the lobby, which doesn't reveal much outside the chaos I created, but we can see what's supposed to be the front of the building when zooming out here. It looks like it's time to make our escape earlier than expected. This didn't go as planned though. It seemed like we were home free, but then I fell through the map, which, to my surprise, resulted with us landing in another portion of the Pizzaplex. This definitely will break the sequence of events if I continue from here, so I went ahead and reloaded my recent save. The lobby itself doesn't really present much that we haven't already seen, but it didn't stop me from having some fun as I pushed my way through this entire part. Speaking of sequence breaking, I did just that when phasing through this door here, instead of heading to the daycare. I'm now technically at the part where Vanny is pursuing us as we make our way back into the lobby through this vent with the screwdriver. This resulted with, a lot happening all at once. Getting a closer look at Vanny is a bit intense, if I have to say. Ultimately, I had to once again reset the instance though, which Vanny excitingly helped me with, by ending me. When we progress as usual, we can see how the map loads in, eventually unloading the lobby and loading in the daycare. Funnily, Chica can still be seen chilling over here. Time to slide into some fun with the sun. And by that I mean kill me. I have to say, Sun is one of the creepier ones if you ask me. He'll, of course, appear up here from where he jumps, as he displays his impressive acrobatic skills with his dive into the ball pit. I was hoping to see him lurk beneath these balls as we approached, but that wasn't the case. He'll just load in below when catching us, as you can see. It's pretty fun to watch as he carries us around, as he slides about when doing so. Creepy. However, if you come back to the ball pit and explore, you'll find over here in this particular castle tower an upgrade for the flashlight that we're about to be getting. Time to give Sun a nervous breakdown again. We can see here how this whole transition takes place when the power shuts off. When he does his transformation, we can see he'll fall backwards and freeze in place here. This reveals how Moon's model is here as well, waiting for its cue, as he's partially clipping through the ground. I let him take me out to get a look at the kill animation he does, which is essentially death by jazz fingers. I was pretty limited with what I could do with him at this point, but I ended up breaking him altogether here. So I got the lights back on, was escorted out, and then proceeded to trap Chica and Roxy in the play area with all the glitched out moons. I was basically testing the limits of the game at this point, trying to crash it, but it resulted with quite the party. When I released the Chicas and Roxys from the play area, I locked them in. They all went on this mission, which was funny to see. Like a bunch of kids lethargically practicing a fire drill. So I joined them in the Freddy suit. This can only be described as the most unsafe, safe situation I've been in so far. But I digress. We're back where we left off, so let's continue on. We're settled nice and safely in Freddy now, as we are able to roam around this area with minimal risk, aside from jumping out to acquire collectibles. Heading back the way we came from follows with the game taking control of us, as it puts us in the charge station. Vanny will show up as she skips by us. Using an elevator at the lobby will lead us here, with this map bot who nearly scares us to death. After a lot of exploration, we'll end up at L Chips to progress, collecting more items as we reach the East Arcade. Avoiding Roxy, we'll do some extensive exploring in here too, as we want to find the vent. Oh boy. Progressing through this way will bring us to a security room where we'll lock it down and survive. After some trial and error, we eventually succeed and get the false alarm achievement. This follows with more sneaking about as we reach this emergency exit, which prompts a close call with Roxy nearly spotting us. We'll want to get on the elevator at this point, which then leads to Gregory being captured by Vanessa. We'll then wake up to Vanessa on the monitors as things escalate here real quick. Vanny will show up, and if you're not fast enough, you'll die. Escaping through the vent, we'll head back to the elevators again as Vanny prances about. Back here, we'll want to head towards the raceway area, which leads to finding Freddy, as his battery charge is nearly zero. We'll then do a lot more splinter selling while searching for the Backstage pass. Once finding that, we'll see that we've gone nearly full circle, as we pass through here again, eventually reaching the Backstage. This part is another lockdown situation that I did complete, but I had some issues while doing so. Holding out, Freddy will show up to save the day, which will then lead to our escape. We find ourselves on the main stage, and then need to go to the sound booth upstairs, which will then allow us to use the button on the stage. This will lower us down, as Moon shows up to derail our escape. It's here where we'll then reach a charge station, but unfortunately, Freddy doesn't quite make it. Let's go ahead and revisit everything we just progressed through though. Sun will disappear just as fast as he appears when booting us out of the daycare. Although it was funny when Sun threw us out, because Chica had zero chill here, as she aggressively tried to follow us into Freddy's stomach hatch. You need to calm down, girl. As for the rest of this area, I had a hard time when it came to messing around here, mostly due to Moon's presence. We can see how he'll simply appear before us during this, and I was unable to get out of Freddy, because he's definitely ready to pounce when doing so. He even got me while still in Freddy, which definitely caught me off guard, which I'll address a bit later. We can see how he just stands here after the kill, along with his cord that is normally seen when he hangs about in the play area. When I tried to see how Freddy looked while running to this charge station, I was surprised to see that there was no Freddy. Moon was here though. Maybe he was about to get us? Hard to say what exactly was happening here, but I think Moon may have spotted our detached camera, and that triggers him to come after us. However, Vanny will show up, and she's just going to skip on by as usual. She has to know we're here, right? How does she not see us? Moving on, when we use the elevator, you'll see that we're not actually moving in here, as it's our surroundings that are changing instead. The lobby we were just in will unload, with the next area loading in shortly after, being two of the biggest areas of the game if I had to guess. This is when MapBot understandably jump scares us, and we'll see it just appears when doing so. There's a lot of ground to cover throughout this area. It's time to head to El Chips though. It's only until we approach this place that we'll see it load into the map. Pushing through this area, we're of course tasked with going through this vent to avoid security, which has its own security as well. This little music man. Seeing how he loads in, I was able to get behind him this time, as we'll now be the pursuer. I thought I'd doom myself here though, since he turned around and came right for me at the end of the vent. But luckily, he unloaded right before reaching me. Whew. This brings us to the next area with all the prizes in the world for Gregory to choose from. That is, if he wants to hang on to the PTSD this place has undoubtedly given him. There's also another one of these bowl-shaped background images that we can find here, which appears to be the lobby when taking a closer look. This, of course, implies that we're above it now. Trying to get over there, Roxy spotted me, but I quickly flipped her about, which results with her getting back on her feet, as she seemingly forgot about us. I wanted to see if I could jump down into this bowl of a lobby that's here, which required me to remove the dome of it first. It does have a collider on it. It also acts as a safe space, seeing that Roxy could not get me in here. Unless I assisted her myself, that is. You're my Matrix lady, and I'm the architect. Anyways, it's time to get in this elevator and get caught by Vanessa now. The mapbot will be here as soon as we enter the elevator, but Vanessa shows up more abruptly, as she'll clip through the bot while getting a hold of us. She's actually under us right before she does this whole sneak attack, as you can see. We'll then load back into a somewhat familiar area. We're now time restricted at this point, and Vanny will show up over here as she prepares to prance her way down the stairs to end us. Little does she know, I'm the captain now. Not today, Satan. Entering this vent will follow with her immediately unloading, but it's here where I realized something that answers a question I had earlier. When taking the camera to go look at her while she's patrolling, you can see how she actually reacts to the camera, as if she spotted us, prompting her to run towards Gregory's location. I was not quick enough to get back to Gregory, but luckily I was safe where I was at during this incident. It definitely caught me off guard, but answers why I died before when messing around with Moon earlier. He must have seen my camera like Vanny did, and then got Gregory, despite us being inside Freddy at the time. When getting to Freddy, with his power being nearly drained and all, I couldn't do much. Trying to break the game here would frustratingly cause the game to crash, for reasons I'm unsure of. But we can take a look at Roxy's jump scare. Like the other death animations, Gregory unloads, but she basically lingered around afterwards, doing what I'd say is her best impersonation of a zombie. More of the map we are traversing will load in, as you can see though, which doesn't have much going on within it, outside of normal gameplay of course. Amongst all the random objects out of bounds though, I did see that there's a T-pose Freddy that's floating here. We'll get back to him momentarily. Once we reach here, we'll see that most of this next area will be loaded in, minus the interior, along with that Freddy we had just seen. I assumed this must be the Freddy that ends up below us, after we escape Monty and Roxy in this Backstage office lockdown. During this lockdown, we can pretty much see what's going on outside our doors with the cameras we have in-game, but Monty and Roxy have us pinned, as we now need to open the doors to help Freddy get to us. It was during this part that I surprisingly realized that these video feeds of Freddy in particular are in fact live gameplay. We can find him out here standing by, waiting for the doors to be opened. We then take a trippy stroll with Freddy as he inched his way closer to us while navigating these partially loaded in areas. A hero of heroes, if you ask me, and quite ashamed to know what eventually happens to him. When initially playing this part, I was perplexed with how I was only hearing Monty when shocking these fools off the doors. Sounds painful, yeah? This drove me to take a closer look at Roxy when shocking her with the door, and this does not look like a response to pain, if you ask me, but I'll let you all make your own observations in the comments with this one. Anyways, Freddy will continue his heroics while he makes his way closer to us, as you can see. When he gets below us, he'll unload, which led me to thinking that this T-pose Freddy would jump into his place. But we'll see that the same Freddy loads in, as he shows off with this impressive vertical jump. Roxy then broke in, thinking she was going to end all this fun, but I kindly nudged her back, and carried on. Maybe next time, Rox. Looks like I was wrong about this T-pose Freddy though, as Monty and Roxy will unload when jumping down to this other Freddy. It was here that I had my most intense jump scare though, as I was not paying attention and figuring out my next move. Vanny just straight up came out of nowhere and annihilated me. Sheesh. Now we need to traverse through this tunnel, as Freddy sort of left me behind. However, he did creep me out when I tried to catch up to him, as he backtracked towards me. We're still friends, right? Progressing through the tunnel will show the previous area unloading, as the main stage area begins to load in. Freddy wasn't proceeding like he should have been, which almost led to a restart, but eventually made his way to us on the main stage. Better late than never, I suppose. Not a whole lot is happening here, outside of what we normally encounter, so I made my way to the sound booth, kept all the danger away from me while doing so, and then got back to this glorious spectacle. Monty was not leaving me alone here, so I put an end to that real quick. Not today, my friend. Beginning our descent on this stage, we'll see how it loads in, along with Moon, who is creepily hanging on the edge here. He's basically standing here when looking at this more closely. He'll drop out of our sight eventually, and will continue dropping as he clips through the floor, disappearing shortly after. I lingered around for a bit here to see if he'd get me, but he clearly had no interest, as he continued with his creepy contorting. Unsurprisingly, Freddy will just unload when we make our way into this charge station, and will then load in with Moon, as we get to see him sadly be dragged off screen. Poor Freddy. With that, we've reached what I believe is a good stopping point for now, as the game eventually starts to branch out on different paths from here. But I hope you enjoyed this out-of-bounds take on Five Nights at Freddy's Security Breach, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Cheers!